Wow.
Wowza.
What a race. What a championship we have. On to the final race.
Abba-dabba-doo.
It's Jon Massengale. That was Jonathan Green. We have Bob Varsha with us, and Chris Medland will be joining us later. But, Jonathan, we now have a championship in the final race, and this was not expected. What a turn of events in this race. We thought it was going to be a boring race.
What of a turn of events in the last 4 months, let's face it. 104 points Piastri led this championship. And I hate to say it, but when he sits around his Christmas table with three-time rally champion dad, Carlos, and all the rest of it, but I'm saying, if you're sitting at home and ruining it, you'll be like, oh, my God, I had this.
He's going to be speechless.
He's going to be, well, my quotes, it's a bit hard to swallow at the moment, Piastri. Because that is the question of this Grand Prix is why did the man who topped every session and did not make a mistake not win the race?
Yeah.
It's because he lost the Delta time when there was a safety car and they should have split. But they started to say conservative. You heard Max in his interview say, yeah, I was surprised at that when that happened. But it did.
Yeah. Well, Bob Varsha's with us too. Bob, what's your quick impression after that?
Well, I think the most important thing is what Jonathan just said, the fact that McLaren's often expressed desire to treat their drivers fairly backfired on them,
yep.
As we always knew it could. And so they thought, well, if we're going to pit Lando, we got to pick Piastri and yada, yada, yada. And you wind up Piastri loses the opportunity to win the race and take the commanding position in the world championship. And it's, it may still happen, but it's going to be very difficult now. Once again, Max Verstappen and that bunch at Red Bull have just done the extraordinary. First taking a car that was looking horrible. I mean, he was practicing 5th, 6th, 7th, and screaming over the radio that the car wasn't working properly. And, they put their heads together and they came up with something, and it's going to work. I mean, compare Red Bull and McLaren at this point. McLaren was sweeping the floor with people.
Yeah.
With 1-2 finishes. First half of the season, they had 7 1-2s or something like that. And so now they come here and they see the downside of that, that policy, whether you would agree with it or not. Sure, you want to treat your drivers fairly, but this is big business and there's a lot going on here. And I just keep hearkening back to the days of Michael Schumacher. And, when he got close, his teammate, whether it was Massa or Barrichello or whatever,
Irvine.
You just knew they were going backwards. Michael was coming through. And when he was questioned about it in press conferences, Michael would say, well, then what would we look like when we got to the end of the season and lost the constructors title by a point? And that's what Jonathan was just talking about. You're going to go to your dinner table after the season saying, well, I'm so glad my team treated me fairly. Now I wish they had.
Yeah.
Now I wish they'd pushed one of us forward.
Yeah, look at the points now, gentlemen. Lando Norris with 408. Max Verstappen now moves up to second with 396, only 12 points back. And then now Piastri at 392 at 16 points back. So 16 points going into the final race.
It's awesome.
Of a total of over 400.
Let me kind of, I agree with Bob, but let me kind of do the counter argument to that, is that at the time, remember, it was early on in the race. So, you've got your plan. You have to do 25 laps. And at the time, the engineer came on and said, it's okay. We now know that everybody else has to do 25 laps. We have the flexibility, is what he said.
And they don't.
And they don't. And that was true. But
he said it with confidence, like he was trying to convince himself or justify his decisions.
But they did not split. They should have made a decision to split the strategies to give them more of an advantage. Instead,
Right.
they stayed conservative, left them both out, and left them in this flexible situation, which could have played into their hands if there'd have been a safety car, another crash, anything. But it didn't. And so, unfortunately, they have been left to rue what could have been.
Okay, what about this? What if you have papaya rules and before the race you have I know all the teams run billions of simulations on what can happen. What if you say this situation pops up and you say, as a team, we decide together that's, okay, if this happens, we are going to split. And you say, well, who's going to get to pit first? You make a decision based, okay, someone has to be leading the championship if you're not tied. I'm just saying, what if you came up with a scenario like that?
I honestly don't think that this particular scenario could ever have been,
imagined.
I'm just saying, imagine it,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, but what if, because I think everyone would agree at that point, there needed to be something different. I mean, it's a horrible decision, right?
And you have to ask the question: is this Piastri's team, i.e., his side of the garage, or is it McLaren's decision to leave them both out? That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in the championship, I asked you at the start of the race: do you think there's radio silence between the two teams? Because if I was Lando Norris, I'd really want to know what Piastri was doing, and whether he's trying to win the championship too. So does he? Roll a dice, or we talked about mechanics covering the car at the start of the race to try to hide perhaps whatever strategy they might have chosen. My point is, was this a team decision or was it an inter-team decision where both engineers decided to play the game of leaving them both out? Listen, it happened quickly. We all went into compute mode, and none of us really quite worked it out. And we also didn't know, and I'm trying to help McLaren here, we didn't know how the hard would run and whether it would be, we were told by Mario Isla that it would be not that different a delta between the medium and the hard. In the end, it's really hard.
I know.
It's easy to sit here on your perch telling the best, minds in the world at motor racing that they got it wrong today. And while those may be the facts, I don't know if they'd have really done anything different but split the strategies and potentially tore the team apart.
You get paid to do this. These are the best in the world. Everybody says these are the best drivers, these are the best strategists, these are the best mechanics, best everything, and you got it wrong.
Well, yeah, and also you wonder at this point in the championship whether it should be the driver that says, no, I'm coming in now and I want this. Yeah. It's his championship. It's his driving the car.
Yeah. He's the bowler or the batsman or the quarterback or whatever analogy you want to use.
At that stage, you can override the engineer and say, no, I'm coming in and I'm getting this.
Well, I'd like to know how much interplay there was between those engineers, because as you say, we treat everybody fairly. What essentially what you're saying there is, whatever happens to one of our guys, it's going to happen to the other. And how is that in any way
detriment of the
good
team
strategy?
Yeah,
exactly. I said, in fact, in the early laps, watching them go round and round and round with Piastri leading Norris, I thought, I wonder if Piastri might fall on his sword, and let Lando by.
Nah.
And then I thought, well, I wonder if Lando would do the same thing and hold everybody up, which Alonso was doing, a couple of cars back, because the same strategy for both cars, and they got it. Neither driver won the race.
It makes qualifying in Abu Dhabi very interesting, doesn't it? Because
makes everything.
Well, let's say Lando has the pole and Verstappen. I mean, let's say if we had the same grid. Piastri in pole, Verstappen in or we switch it around a bit and Lando starts pole. Does Piastri stop Verstappen? It's really interesting. I mean, really, nothing's changed. All three go for it. Yeah. 16 points is 16 points. That's the difference between a DNF. And like I've said before, the jeopardy is McLaren have got an older car than perhaps Red Bull. Now that's pulling on straws, I know, but.
Well, it is interesting to look at it all in retrospect. I talked about Schumacher, and you always knew that, if the opportunity arose, Schumacher was going to be allowed past his teammate.
But that was set in stone, though, wasn't it? And everybody knew.
Yes, it was. Yep. And
including the opposition. It wasn't like they were surprised to see Massa slow down, let's say, or which is ironic because he's now fighting.
We went through all that silliness in Germany way back when Rob Smedley was using code to say to Massa, I guess it was, Fernando is faster than you. Yeah. Confirm you understand this. I mean, that was kind of Mickey Mouse too, but I think it was Schumacher who convinced me, this is a high stakes, incredibly lucrative, incredibly nerve jangling business. And you really can't go out there and expose your breast to the gods, as it were, and say, okay, we're going to do this fairly. That way we'll be a true champion, should it come to that. But actually, you look a little silly, I think, by telling your drivers they're both going to get the same treatment. Now, we're in this business. All that money in the prize pool goes to the constructors. I will say once again, it doesn't go to the drivers. You got to tell your drivers, look, if you're going to win, whatever the number is this year, $150 million for us, one of you is going to be preferred over the other. It could be, that's where the fairness comes in. It could be either one of you. It's not going to be in a contract like it was with Schumacher. You get out front and we will back you to the detriment of your teammate, because this is a business and we want to emerge, as successful in financial terms, certainly, as anybody. And if you choose to leave the team, well, that's up to you, because the next guy is going to get the same treatment.
Yeah. What about the McLaren board of directors right now? How do you think those guys are feeling at this moment?
Yeah. And this through line, by the way, goes all the way back to Flavio Briatore. And if you listen, I listened to an interview that Flavio did, I want to say about the 5th round. And he hasn't done that many interviews of late. But he said, no. You can't have papaya rules. You have to have a number one driver. This is how Formula One works. That is how it worked for me at Benetton. And that's how those same people from Benetton went on to work for Ferrari and played the same game. And I would argue that is the philosophy of the old school, way of going racing. And yet, to be fair to McLaren, Ron Dennis always felt that he would give each driver the fairest chance. And Zach's just trying to follow that vein through. But as we've now discovered, it can and will, and we said it all season, can make a hiccup when you don't choose to fight. It's one of the most fascinating things about Formula One is that two does not go into one. Yeah. And the bottom line is you are fighting for the Constructors' Championship, and that's where the money is. So that's where the team principals tend to land. And that's where the backers and the investors tend to land. But this sport has always been about the Drivers' Championship, because that's the glory, that's the goal, that's what people remember. I bet if we did a test, even for me and Bob, to say who were the Constructors' Champions, who was the Drivers' Championships, and we went back to 1950 and we were able to name 30 of them would be drivers and 20 of them would be, constructors that would come out first. It's just the way the psychology of this game works, but that's why I love it.
Carlos Sainz is the first Williams driver to achieve 2 podiums since 2015, when Bottas and Massa each received.
Wow.
2. Wasn't that a feel-good story? I'm going to turn the tone of the show up, because Carlos Sainz, and he had about, a dozen frantic radio calls trying to hang on to that podium?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was great. And really great for Williams. What a last couple of races. And, what a turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it continues.
Okay, you were talking numbers a moment ago. I got a number for you. 7. 7 wins for Verstappen, 7 wins for Norris, and 7 wins for Piastri.
So then you go second places?
Then you go second places.
But somebody's got to, of those 3, somebody's got to win the race.
Somebody's going to win, right? Exactly. Well, not necessarily.
Right, exactly.
That's
not
true.
Necessarily. What if somebody else wins the race?
What if Russell wins the race?
That's right.
And then we're on countback.
Oh, that's my prediction for next week. I almost got it right today.
We'll let the boffins pick out what that means then.
Can you imagine the radio call if one of the drivers dialed up and said, hey, how can I finish second in this race? I want to open that tiebreaker for me,
Yeah.
My teammate can win, but I'm going to be second in case I
Exactly.
catch him later this year.
Oh, that's
God.
great. That's great. Yes, it could happen. We could go to a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Man. This was not the race we
Crazy,
were
crazy.
expecting, was it? This was not.
No, I guess not. But we did say it would be over before the first corner, and I remember looking at it going, job done for Verstappen.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
The driver of the day votings have come in, and it's a tie between Gasly and Hulkenberg
No, it's not.
for making this a fantastic race for us today.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was afraid we were going to have a rash of punctures there when Lawson had one and Gasly had one. And
Yeah,
I kept
Hadjar had
thinking,
one
is
at
this
the end of the
gonna-
race there.
Hadjar had one, and I thought, oh boy, about 3 years ago, this was chaotic due to punctures. And maybe the same is happening here.
Yeah, speaking of drivers who didn't finish, you see Behrman, they showed the replay of his
Yeah, he
pit
was
stop.
upset, yeah.
And he was just
Well, he didn't do anything wrong.
banging his steering wheel
Yeah.
because he knew that his race was done.
And he didn't
sure
do
enough-
anything wrong. He just came in, did his pit stop. And
Did we ever hear what he'd run over?
One
on?
comment was that the tail lifter
Yeah,
at the back didn't unconnect, which is why he
that
was
would
kind
make
of
sense.
stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, because it
Oh,
did
the
look
jack
like
man?
it
Yeah.
looked like
The
he
jack.
hit something. and I
Rear
thought,
jack, yeah,
a wheel gun he would have just driven over.
Yeah,
But you're
yeah.
right, a rear jack would do it.
would do it. Yeah.
Check on YouTube, see if any of the boys and girls out there can have identified that issue. Not yet, but yeah, this has really set us up nicely for next week, and we have a nice early start to next week. I haven't looked at yet. Casey's probably knows off the top of his head how early we have to start next week, but I love to start early. Okay, so it's
8 a.m. Eastern.
7 a.m. race, 6 a.m. start for us here in Austin. I love it, though. I love the early ones.
You do?
I do. I do like them. I mean,
What, hanging out with a zombie like me?
not the not the crazy early ones, but Casey, do we need a top of the hour reset, or do we? Well, let's go ahead and get that done now, and hopefully Chris Medland will be able to join us and he'll tell us what kind of F1 TVs he has. But we're going to continue. Lots of stories to talk about. Back after these messages. Everybody's in on YouTube. All right, let's scroll to the top. Bill Ricker, reminder that a gamble wisely made but lost does not cease to be wise.
Mhm.
Yes, very good. That's going to be on the plaque in the McLaren garage next week after Max wins the Drivers' Championship.
Does not cease to be wise. However,
Yes.
what's the follow-up? Doesn't cease to be wise, but it does begin to be unlucky.
I
Yeah.
couldn't remember the rest of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
TW says he's surprised McLaren didn't split the strategy.
I honestly think they were caught on the hop, is the truth. I think we weren't ready for that at that time. They had a plan, and it was thrown up in the air. You don't expect, because of the nature of the track, you expect a kind of a ponderous race. You don't expect, because of the runoff, et cetera, to have a safety car, an actual safety car. You do expect a virtual safety car, which wouldn't affect anything the same way. And I think they got caught on the hop a little.
You mentioned, well, before we went on air, that was the conservative approach. But I don't know if I would call that the conservative approach or not.
Well, within the team, I mean.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
No, it was a radical decision because, that's a free pit stop's a free pit stop. You take it.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, that's what the rest of the pits would take. It's why everybody was so gobsmacked when McLaren tried to articulate their papaya rules.
Yeah, it's almost bizarre that they made that decision as the championship dominating team.
Yeah.
And in any other circumstance, you'd be like, what the heck are they doing?
All right, here we go.
Hello, I'm I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Wow, welcome back, guys. We just watched an amazing race in Qatar that has completely turned the Drivers' Championship back upside down. We're now within 16 points with 3 drivers. Now, Lando, Max Verstappen now in second, Oscar Piastri in third, and all to play for next week. Man, we've been talking about it, Jonathan, but this is what we hope for when we start a season, isn't it?
Yeah, it is exactly what we hope for. And it doesn't matter whether you have a favorite driver or a favorite team. You kind of want it to go all the way. It's like the Super Bowl. You
want your guy to win, but you want it to go down to the wire.
You want the best. You want the best out of the best. You want to see it.
Yep.
You want to see competition taken to its fruition for sure.
Yeah. And with the pit stop caused by the yellow flag, I should say, caused by the Gasly-Hulkenberg collision early in the race. It was lap 10-ish. And that just turned everything upside down. McLaren decided not to pit then, gambled, and looking like they lost that gamble at this point because...
I'd like to see whose decision it actually was, because it's obviously a team decision.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
And that
we'll find out at the end of the season if they don't win the Drivers' Championship, whoever gets fired. Jon Massengale, Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha with us. And Bob, who would you expect to make that call? Would that be your chief strategist? Would that be your team principal? I mean, my goodness, that's a lot of folks.
That's a good question. I don't know how they divide responsibilities at McLaren necessarily, but I will say Zach Brown takes the majority of the credit for getting this team to where it is. And the announcers during the feed of the race that I was watching spoke about this for a while. You consider where McLaren was at their worst at the nadir, and it was pretty awful, no fun to watch. And now they're here, and I think Zach gets a lot of the credit for that. And part of his secret for managing this operation is he's the CEO. He takes no part in technical decisions. So I would probably doubt that he had anything to do with that. Then you look at the strategy and, what the engineers think. And I'm sure they were, asked the question. I don't know. It's just really hard.
Yeah,
it'd be more interesting if somebody said, if one of the driver's engineers said, no, I think we're crazy to do that. Then it goes really crazy. If everybody said, yeah, that's the thing to do, let's do that, and it blew up on them, then, nobody's at fault, I guess, but everybody's at fault. And I'd be curious to find that out. How did that decision get made? Maybe Chris is in the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to Chris a little bit later, but I want to talk about Max Verstappen. He won look.
I've heard of him.
Yes. Max Verstappen wins this race today, but the fact that we hardly saw him.
We didn't.
In that broadcast because he didn't make a mistake. We saw lots and lots of little mistakes by both McLaren drivers pushing a lot of the race. In that first stint when they stayed on those tires, that everybody knew, okay, well, that now you got to push. You got to get every millisecond of time for the remaining of that stint. And that didn't seem to affect him, but it was later in the race when we seemed to see more of the errors.
Yeah, I mean, and
they
natural.
were huge.
But that's natural. Fuel loads, tires going down and or going off. And pressure on. You're pushing. I mean, I think at one point Piastri was given the sort of, hey, you've got to be a second quicker than Verstappen in order to make up that gap, and it became almost an impossible task.
Yeah. Let me run down the order. Max Verstappen wins the race, followed by the first McLaren, Oscar Piastri, followed by Carlos Sainz with a podium for Williams. We'll talk all about that. Lando Norris, the other McLaren, in fourth, right ahead of Antonelli, who just towards last couple laps, and I think it may have been the very last lap, when Antonelli went wide and let Norris through, because otherwise Norris was going to finish fifth.
Yeah, so that moment by Antonelli was massive.
Yep, and then followed by George Russell in sixth, Alonso in seventh, including a spin that he had that he caught and kept on going, and Charles Leclerc, the first Ferrari, down in eighth. Liam Lawson with a nice finish in the top 10 in ninth, and Yuki Tsunoda in the other Red Bull in 10th, a point for him.
Great day for Racing Bulls. They've consolidated their 6 overall in the championship now.
Yep. And then Albon, the other Ferrari, and Lewis Hamilton in 12th.
Ferrari.
Bortoletto, Colapinto, Ocon, and Gasly, the last of the finishing cars, and retired Stroll, Hadjar, Behrman, and Hulkenberg.
I will say this, that Behrman's retirement really helped Aston Martin, and so did Alonso with his points, because Alonso now has put Aston Martin in a clear 7-point behind Red Bull, so they still can chase them, but they move away by 7 points over Haas, and that's a big point gap for them to catch up in one race.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yep. But yeah, let's talk about Carlos Sainz, because that podium for him was
That's brilliant.
It was brilliant, and I've never heard so many frantic radio calls from him trying to hang on to that. But what was the final gap on that? Let's see if I show that, because it was.
And Williams have consolidated 5th in the championship, which, when you think about where they've been in the last few years, pretty darn impressive. They're just outside the top.
6/10 ahead of Lando Norris, because that gap was over a second. And I think he made up a half a second almost in that last final lap. So, yep. Antonelli, followed by Russell, 5th and 6th. Good showing for Mercedes. Jonathan, what about the Constructors' Championship there?
Let me have a look. Yeah, Mercedes now 459 to Red Bull's 426. So Mercedes actually have, again, I would argue, consolidated second place in the championship. And that's actually where the top 4, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, are going to finish, and Williams are going to be 5th.
And we're not having any plank wear checks, I'm assuming, this week.
Nobody's walking the plank.
Yes. And let's see. I'm just checking social media. I was checking on Driver of the Day, and I think that it was Max Verstappen officially, not my unofficial results a while ago, where I tried to give it to Gasly and Hulkenberg for giving us the excitement they did. But
I tell you what, I mean, some people care about this sort of stuff. Some people don't. But what about this for an almighty battle? Fernando Alonso, with his points today, now moves to 12th, 1 point behind Nico Hulkenberg, and just a few points behind Hadjar. 2 points behind Hadjar. So 48, 49, 41 Behrman, 48 Fernando, 49 Hulkenberg, Hadjar 51. So nice little battle in the Drivers' Championship for the top 10 overall.
I think we need to put out a poll where McLaren
put a flag on it.
You know, where they should they have pit, or should they have split?
Oh, I like it. A little bit of alliteration. Pit or split?
Yeah, sure. There's a whole media room full over in Qatar, and I'm sure it hasn't occurred to any of them.
Twist or stick, split or split.
Yeah, there you go.
Pit or split.
I think we've all agreed that they should not have pitted them together.
Well, to be honest, for a team has been so strategically good, that's the sort of thing Ferrari do. I mean, it really was a poor decision.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't be a strategist. I wouldn't be a strategist. Don't pretend to be. But hang on, safety car in.
Yeah.
Well, and the rule at McLaren, I think I'm right in saying, was always the leader among our 2 cars on the track has the option. Do you want to pit first or second compared to your teammate?
Right.
And then see what everyone else chooses to do. So I'm wondering if Piastri got talked into that. I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but I wonder how much friction, let's say, there was before that decision got made, and who made it and when.
Yeah.
I mean, for all we know, Piastri was cruising along and said, "Oh, come on, we got to win this Drivers' Championship to go with the constructors. So tell Lando, when we get to this point, if he's, close by, I'll let him go by."
All right, I want to go back to turn 1. Max Verstappen cleared Lando Norris at turn 1 for the second week in a row, guys. And he was able to do that.
On the outside.
Yeah, on the outside. He was able to do that by having a slightly better reaction time, 0.33 to 0.35 to Lando. and a 0 to 200 of 4.75 versus 4.89. That's actually it's a tiny number, but it's a pretty big gap. We saw it on track, and he absolutely, Jonathan, you gave us a little preview of the possible turn
mindset.
one,
Yeah,
of the mindset. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But Max Verstappen just did what he had to do.
Did exactly what Max does. Yeah, like I said, he had one eye on Piastri, but Piastri made a good start too.
Yeah. I was just going to put up the 0 to 200, Tom. I mean, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What are we, drag racing now?
Yeah.
Yep. 0 to 200. But in this case, it changed the championship before turn one was done.
What was the difference between?
It was 4.75 versus 4.89.
Jeez, it's nothing really, is it?
It's nothing really, but we saw.
But that's the difference between the dirty side of the track and the clean side of the track.
Yep.
And that's the difference between that. I mean, I said to you right at the end of the race, go back to that Q3 error at turn 2 for Lando. That pretty much put paid to his weekend for 2 or 3 reasons. 1, didn't get the pole. 2, has to start on the dirty side of the track.
Yep.
3, allows Verstappen to have a go at him, whereas had he been pole, Verstappen would have been doing the same to Piastri.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think we set a record today. I hope we did. I tweeted it. The 1.8 second pit stop for Oscar Piastri.
I think you're probably right.
I know if anything, it's 1.8 something, the other one.
Well, I do remember a figure of 1.85 for Sonoda. And by the way, old Red Bull were the top 4 in Brazil, because I did this research for Vegas before we got there. So I know that was the quickest stop in Brazil, was 1.85.
Yeah.
Sonoda.
Yeah.
So anything quicker than that?
we know it was 1.8. We don't know exactly what it was after that. We'll find out.
Now, overall, ever, I think it's right up there, but it may not be the fastest ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boy, didn't Max really make that? I mean, it was very little drama on that turn 1 pass. I mean, because he had a little bit of wheels ahead. So
yeah,
but he just looked totally drama free. What else, Greeny? I mean, we've talked about the big stories, but what else struck you about today?
Like I said, I was watching carefully on that battle between Aston Martin and Haas, which, like I said, Aston Martin really were looking down the barrel of finishing their worst ever, and Alonso has definitely helped by getting good points today. I thought when he started and after his qualifying, he was going to go even better. But it wasn't to be. He kind of disappeared. But I still think it's a good story. I always like to watch the midfield because, that's where Cadillac are going to plump into next year. And I think you're going to get a great battle between Aston Martin, Racing Bulls, Haas, and Cadillac next year. And Alpine could be in that, and Audi.
All right, I got one we haven't talked about. Ferrari. Leclerc finished 8th, Hamilton 12th, helped by 4 retirements. In that whole mix.
And going on the softer tires at the start.
Yeah.
But then again, whoopee-doo.
Well, they moved up pretty quick, but then we knew that was going to happen. They moved up and then stopped. They didn't gain, I think Hamilton gained 3 or 4 positions right at the start.
Just at the start, yeah.
Yeah, and then that was done. But, hey, if you're Ferrari, you're going to take anything you can take right now.
Oh, yeah.
The way the car's going.
They just want to go home right now. They really don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, they said they didn't have a competitive car, and they've come, 10th and 12th, which is about as good as they could have got.
Yep.
Actually.
Very true. So we go into the final race, as we mentioned earlier, with the championship down to 16 points across 3 drivers. We were talking during the race, Jonathan, about statistically over time, you can't use points because point system has changed, but there's been obviously a handful that have been like this, but this is definitely historically close anyway. And
yeah, with 3 drivers for sure.
With 3, right.
That's very rare.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of very rare, we were talking about it during the race when the first pit stop came, or first yellow flag. Actually, we were saying how when the first pit stop comes, it's going to be unusual to have all those drivers pitting at the same time. We just don't see that often in Formula One. Of course, it was mandated because the 25 limit.
But they could have split them, though.
Yes.
But what they chose to do was double stint because it was the safety car. Again, everybody else doing the obvious. McLaren, frankly, getting nervous on the trigger. They should have pulled the trigger on the pit stop. It was a bad move. I don't care who made the decision. But again, I go back to Piastri. He's going to be kicking himself because the team have let him down.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Bob, you had a thought. I could see it.
Well, I'm still wondering about that McLaren pit stop decision. I recall the radio transmission to one of their drivers, and the engineer said, "Yeah, this is what we're doing because those cars will have to make their second stop
32
later, 9 laps later than we will, which gives us a much wider operating window in terms of when we want to pit to make one of our mandatory changes." And I thought, well, yeah, this is me again. It can go both ways. Yeah, that'll give you a bit of an opening, unless there's another safety car which lets everybody pit if they want to. And I can't get my head around the decision to stack them because you knew it had to be a crowded pit lane. It was going to be chaotic. So why would you risk that? I would think you may want to just leave one of your race dominating drivers out there and bring one in that's covering your bases, not saying, well, okay, we're going to have 9 laps and we have no idea what's going to happen, what anybody else is going to do, but we're going to have both of our cars on the same lap. So we can, stagger or split the strategy later on, or stack them again. There's a lot of great storylines.
Yeah. All right. And speaking of that, we're going to take a break and we will get to all the great storylines. And later in the show, we have an exclusive interview with Ferrari driver Charles Leclerc. So back after these messages. All right, let's check in on YouTube. Let's see. 2010, Tim says, 4 drivers had a shot at the last race. Wow. Who were they? Yeah,
gosh.
2010.
Ugh.
2010.
God, I'm going to have to look that up.
Well, I imagine Hamilton had to be one of them.
Yep.
Not going to look it up and let everybody figure this out. Oh, we got a couple comments here. Let's see. Next week, Max.
Everybody's dialing up.
I know.
Look at the last one.
Did you Google it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to know who it is?
Yeah. Why not?
Lewis Hamilton, 240. Weber, 242, third. Alonso, 252. And Vettel wins it with 256.
Wow, that was tight.
Very tight.
And Vettel did get number 1 status in those fights.
Yes, he did.
Lewis probably too. That was
And
Mark
Fernando probably.
Webber. Yeah.
Into Music says Alonso saved the race for McLaren. With that, holding up that DRS train.
Kind of, yeah. That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah. Right. If you consider that saving races. I still think it was 2010.
Yeah, good point.
Was that the year they got to Abu Dhabi and Ferrari? No, not Ferrari. One of those teams, I can't remember if it was Ferrari or Red Bull, miscalculated who they were actually racing. And Vettel had a pretty easy time of the victory because his rivals got their strategies mixed up.
Yeah. I'm just checking some of these. All right, here we go. Back it up the break.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, I heard from Chris. He's going to be joining us when he can, so we should get him. He's doing some F1 TV, Chris Medland. And So, Jonathan, we were talking about all the different possibilities for this final race, right?
Mhm.
So it all goes out the window now. We're all just going to battle for the win. And in fact, I heard Max say something that he's never said all season, or I should say, ever since the comeback started, right? He's been coming back since Zandvoort, 104 points behind, and now he's down to what, 12 points behind. And he's been saying, oh, it's too far out. And then he would say, okay, maybe. And he's gotten a little better.
Are you ready for the quote?
Yes, let's hear it.
It's all possible now.
It's all possible now. Finally, Max is saying it. And he can say that.
And he can say it, and he means it. And the one thing you can guarantee with Max Verstappen, as you could with Michael and you could with Ayrton, they tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Now, they can get funky now and again.
Well, he got a little funky when he said that when asked, I think it was Medland who did the interview with him for F1 TV. He said,
no, I'm not thinking about
it. No, when he said, well, we're here because of the mistakes
they've made,
the other teams made. He said it a little more ruthlessly.
He has tried a little bit in the press. He said if he'd had a McLaren, he would have won the title years ago, type thing. And he's been trying to
Didn't he say that last year too?
Well, he certainly said it this weekend and pointed it at Lando, and Lando went, yeah. But yeah, I mean that's part of the game. Come on, a little bit of a little bit of gouging there. What do you call it? A little bit of roasting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Head games.
Yeah, head games, absolutely. But that was the quote that we both picked up on. It is all possible now.
All possible. When he said it, we both grabbed our pen.
Yep.
Said, I am not going to forget that he said that.
I tell you what I want for Christmas.
Yes.
I want an Adrian Newey pencil.
That's
we grabbed our pen. I'd like to have the sort of Newey pen set.
Yes.
If it existed.
Yes. And
does he chew on them? That would make it
That would make it fun, wouldn't it?
Like John Voight? I chewed on John Voight pencil?
Yeah, John Voight's pencil, right.
Very good, Bob. I didn't think anyone would get that reference. Thank you. Yeah. I didn't know you were a Seinfeld fan as well. But yes, the Red Bull Twitter account has changed their profile, their description, and all it says is it's still on.
Yeah, it is.
Get your popcorn.
Yeah. I tell you who must be having a wry smile right now. Kind of, I'm just laughing where he might be. Is sitting in front of the fire with his two dogs and his beautiful wife. Christian Horner must be looking at this going, wow, didn't see that coming.
Didn't see that coming, and maybe I wish I were still there.
Well, that I think is true, but that's not happening.
Yeah, I didn't know who you were going to when you were saying that to by the fire. But well, what else, Greeny? From we could go expand a little bit. Look, we're getting towards the end of this season, and Cadillac keeps coming into the back of my mind with next year about what's going on there now. But I mean, next week is going to be epic, no matter how you slice it. This week we weren't expecting an exciting race, and we had a fantastic strategic discussion and race going on. So what else?
Yeah, I want to put a mention in. It's kind of not related, but I want to make sure that people are aware that Red Bull have said that they will announce their driver lineup by this week, i.e. before Abu Dhabi. But I think it's a pretty loose secret, if you will, that Hadjar is going to get the nod. And what that means for Tsunoda, I don't know. If I were a gambling man, Lindblad has now finished his season in 6th. He's got no rush. And with the form that RB have shown this year, and obviously they've got some pretty competent people in that team, because in this game, currently in Formula One, to compete, you've all got to be good, and that's what all the teams are doing. So I would say I would put Tsunoda back with his old mate, Liam Lawson. Yeah, they're rivals, but they've been mates for a long time. They've grown up racing together. I just think that's a very strong lineup for RB, rather than just jettisoning Tsunoda into the wilderness, because I can't see him getting a drive since Colapinto's now been confirmed. Where does Yuki go? And I think Yuki does deserve to be a Formula One driver. on merit now, and given his post or last few races of the season, I think he's done plenty.
Gosh, one of us on the show were like, I think maybe even you, Jonathan, you were like, don't do it. Don't go to Red Bull whenever Lawson was ejected.
I did. Well, it's a poison chalice. No, Perez's career was over because of that. Now, you can't guess that another team's coming in and you're going to be its driver. So, yeah, his career was done.
Yeah, and look at Tsunoda now. I mean, it's just there's no good has come from.
Yeah, and I said that about Lindblad, but frankly, he did a great job in free practice. He's got a clean bill of health, shall I say? So, the scars of being a Red Bull driver aren't there yet, and he's young enough. And I do feel that I know him well enough to know that he's mentally very strong indeed, perhaps more so than Lawson and Tsunoda. And because he's a rookie, he's not going to do any harm coming into the RB team at all. Now, putting him in the Red Bull, I think, would be a mistake because it could, it's not going to be an Antonelli situation. Verstappen's going to wipe the floor with him and therefore be no good in what will be a tight championship again next year. So you've got to put best foot forward, and Hadjar, I think, is the best foot forward for Red Bull as a team.
Yeah. You mentioned a Formula 2 driver twice in the last 2 minutes, and that was Arvid Lindblad.
Yep.
But the Formula 2 championship has now been decided with
Fornaroli winning,
wrapping up the championship.
And Crawford taking second. Equal, funnily enough, with Richard Verschoor, who is a perennial F2 driver, the Dutchman. I'm glad that he's third in the championship, but he's another driver.
Well, is Crawford for sure going into Yas Marina next weekend? Is he mathematically for sure secured second?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It's they're on equal points, him and Verschoor. So it's up for grabs.
So it's up. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what am I thinking? If they're tied for second, sorry, I was looking up the standings.
No, Fornaroli is champion. The battle is on. They're equal points. I think 190 each.
Because Browning and Dunn also very close. Browning at 162, right behind Crawford and Verschoor.
I really don't think it makes. It certainly doesn't make too much difference to their career path. We've seen that with Behrman and Antonelli, and to a certain extent Lindblad. As long as you're competitive in F2, then the rookies we brought in this year show that you don't have to be a Bortoletto to win the championship to actually get a throw of the dice. But I think Crawford's done more than enough. It doesn't really matter now. He goes into the final round. He has a brilliant weekend. He's second. He has a not so brilliant weekend. He's third.
Yeah. All right.
I wonder what happened to.
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking. I saw a quote the other day. Someone recommended Ayumu Iwasa for over Yuki Tsunoda, and Iwasa has won the Japanese Super Formula Series, so he is a character for the future.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I actually think we're going to see in the next 10 years. I think that we're going to see a lot more Japanese drivers getting closer, if not into Formula One. I have a conspiracy theory thanks to Bill Ricker. Are you ready?
Is it the Antonelli one?
Antonelli, have we done it?
No, we haven't done
Antonelli
it.
and Alonso, both aiding Mercedes customer team, McLaren. Could it be a coincidence?
Ooh, I like it. I like it, Bill.
No, it seems like a natural thing in Formula One. Speaking of which, on the other side of the break, I think we should talk a little bit about Adrian Newey taking on severe new responsibilities.
Well, we did talk quite a lot. You weren't here yesterday, but we got into it. But it's
worth
absolutely it's worth doing again. And I'd like to get your take on it.
I want to know.
Yeah. Well, we had a long discussion about it yesterday, me and Chris. So
all right, we'll talk about Adrian Newey and more after the break.
Have you run the
Leclerc?
No,
I was thinking that we could just run the second half, but I don't think I put the cut version in the Google Drive. Did I, Casey?
So you missed your pit stop window.
I did. I cut it, but I don't think I put it in there. Let me look. And talk to the YouTubers, Johnny, while I look for this.
I'll talk to the YouTubers. Hello, YouTubers. What are you doing? Conspiracy theories. Well, we got that one. Nui will be a temp job. Kevin, that's exactly what I'm about to say, to be honest. And that's actually what... So, Bob, I can tell you in a nutshell, we've just had it nicely put in by Kevin Kelly, that basically we were saying, I've known Adrian Nui since the Williams days. He's never wanted to be a team principal. And his answer when asked about it... Yeah, and when asked about it, he goes, well, I'm going to Australia anyway, so it fits in. And Alonso backed that up. Yeah, seriously, Alonso backed that up, which was like, well, you know, we've got a new engine. So basically, they rubbed it off by saying, or kept it smooth by saying that, what's his name that got fired?
Sorry.
Andy Cal?
Andy Cal. He's going to now concentrate on strategy and integrating the new engine partner and Aramco, i.e. To sort of manage that partnership with Aramco and manage the partnership with Honda, which is his won't, and that Adrian will, because he's going to Australia, fit the bill. And that's thin. That is thin. The last thing that Adrian Newey wants to do is be in Lawrence's office of a Monday morning talking about the next sex scandal in the factory or whatever it might be. And frankly, I also don't think that Horner will come in, as we discussed, or has been mooted by many people for those reasons alone, that although he would be a good figurehead, he'll want probably too much money, and I don't think he and Newey see eye to eye.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We are discussing all about the Qatar Grand Prix and more. And Casey, if you've got that Leclerc ready, and he's going to need just a minute or so here to get the Leclerc clip ready for me.
It's good interview. Great timing to do an interview like that at this stage of the season when it really is crumbling for Ferrari.
Well, speaking of crumbling for Ferrari, I've got a stat for you. Who do you think has scored more points in the last 3 Grand Prix, Williams or Ferrari?
Williams.
They're tied.
Wow.
30 on 30 points in the last 3 Grand Prix. That I wouldn't have believed with the podium today for...
Well, it was one of our one of our viewers that said it was one of our YouTubers that said the Ferrari driver used to be a prestigious. Well, it used to be the prestigious driver. I'd rather have a Williams driver this year.
Yeah. Wow, that's just painful to say for Ferrari fans.
Bill Ricker again.
Also, did you know the Hadjar puncture at the end? I don't know if that was a puncture or a blowout. Because I didn't hear I just saw some chatter on social media.
Given that they believe that those car tires could go 35 laps, and then they knocked it down to 25, I don't think so. It will be a blowout. No.
All right. Well, I hear Chris Medland's microphone lighting up out in Qatar. Mr. Medland, are you finished with your F1 TV duties?
I am. I've been running around speaking to some very unhappy and some very happy people. I spoke to Andrea Stella, who, fun enough, was not very happy. And I spoke to James Vowles, who was very happy. And in fact, he was so happy, I'm going to even risk trying to double up with him. I'm walking back down to Williams right now.
Double up.
Hey, Chris, while we're on it then, whose decision at McLaren was it?
Well, it's a strategic call. So it's the strategy team. Randy Singh is their chief strategist. So it's the team under him, at least. It's done collectively. And what Stella explained was the reason they did not pit was that obviously there were 2 cars at the head of the field. And if they'd come in and others hadn't, you're putting yourself into traffic. Yeah. And also the timing meant that maybe other cars in the pit lane, if it is busy, would mean you're kind of in, you could have a slow pit stop, but you're coming out into traffic on a track that's hard to overtake. So at the time that their 2 cars were coming towards the pit lane and have to make that call, it seems difficult. The second that everybody else comes in, suddenly it's like, oh, well, if we'd pit, we would have been back out in the lead. Like, we would not have lost any ground. We wouldn't have had to worry about traffic. We would have been in the right place. But they still felt if there's another safety car, which was a fair point, no one knew there would be a safety car at that moment, and then there could be one later, that they'd save that time back. So it would have kind of equalised itself. Certainly if it had been before their first pit stop, because they opened up a big gap, didn't they, before that first stop in particular. But it would have happened as well with that second stop quite late in the race. If there'd been a safety car when everyone else had made their second stops, the McLarens would have been in and out first and second, or at least second and third right behind Max. But because that didn't happen, he says, clearly we made the wrong call. We didn't get it right. That was the time to save the time, and you had to do it. Interestingly, though, from James Vowles' point of view, and this is someone with a strategic background as well, and in case I don't grab him right now because I can't find him, I'll paraphrase something he did say, was that they said it was very clear for them with Carlos to make that stop. It was, they talked about it before the race. They knew lap 7 onwards, if you get a safety car, get in, make it, get back out again. But he did say when it came to Alex Albon, they considered something different because he was outside the points and they were trying to mix it up.
Yeah.
And even with him, they then went, no, it doesn't make sense. You've got to come in. You've got to take the free stop when it's there.
Yeah.
So to him, it was quite obvious. To Williams, it was quite obvious. Clearly, to everyone, it was because 18 out of 20 cars came into the pits then. Even the Haas of Esteban Ocon, with the penalty to be served, with the fact everyone else had gone through, they still came in a lap later. So, yeah, McLaren really dropped the ball on that one.
So, Chris, it just came to my mind when you were saying if you get James Vowles, would you ask? It's kind of a tough question. Do you ask him, hey, are McLaren doing the right thing with these papaya rules? I mean, will a team principal ever answer that about another team principal?
I reckon they'd look at stuff. I think they'd pay attention to what others are doing, and they might give an opinion. I don't know if there's kind of a need for Williams to hammer the point home too much, because look at which team is fighting for the Constructors' Championship and which one isn't right now. Yeah. McLaren can rightly turn around and say, hey, we built a much better car than you guys, and we've won way more races than you guys right now. But yeah, it's quite interesting to get a take of someone with such a strategic mind as well about some of these decisions and why they may have been made. So I would love to ask him. I really wanted to get Toto Wolff as well. I can tell you I didn't get him for F1 either. He went straight into debrief. But so I'm going to see if I can grab him afterwards if he pops out. Chris, he apparently was very punchy about Red Bull blaming Kimi Antonelli at the end of that race as well.
Okay. Chris, the reason I asked you about McLaren was I wanted to know whose decision it was, because I just feel that with this on the line and with both drivers in a position to win the title, that it would be left to the individual sides of the garage to make the split call. And therefore it would be a Piastri or his engineer to say, come on in, that's what we're doing, rather than it be a team decision.
No, so you do have obviously each other garage, but it's a strategic team is looking at the whole picture. And the fact that it was both that they didn't make it with suggests they had the same concern with both cars. A driver could try and ask as well, but we've heard it a million times, haven't we? And I think back to the best examples generally been Lewis Hamilton, where he would almost argue the point with Mercedes sometimes about why they hadn't done something. And afterwards they'd say, well, and normally Mercedes would prove them right with the decisions they made. And they'd say, well, this is why you don't have the whole picture in the car. Yeah, if we pit you here, you end up in this place, you get stuck. Look at the final stint. You'd have thought Norris would just cruise up into third place, but traffic was such a problem. Even though he only had 2 cars to try and clear and much fresher tyres, he couldn't do it until, fortunately for him, Antonelli nearly threw it off the road. So you can see where the fear came from and why it was actually well-placed fear, but nobody else had that concern at that point in the race. It was outweighed by you save so much race time making your pit stop. And what I think's telling is that because every other team did make that stop, every other team will have been thinking, everyone's going to come in here. Everyone has to. That's why you do it. You're not going to lose out because everyone's on the same page, which is why it was so strange that only one team wasn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would be willing to bet right now that James Vowles will politely decline to answer that question. He was interviewed on the F1 TV by Martin Brundle, and he said, "No, that's not my it's not my
bailiwick
role to say whether another team's management of a race was good or bad." They're so polite.
Oh, British, of course.
Oh yes, very polite. Can't be having that. I'm still going to try and dig him out and see if he will.
Sure.
What else did you pick up, Chris? What was of huge interest to you?
So this is something that wasn't said to me on any interviews, but I've been told about it from the print session that Toto Wolff gave. But he was very angry that Helmut Marko said that Antonelli had moved over voluntarily and let Norris through.
No.
And he was also annoyed that GP had said similar on the radio. Now, what happened is GP did come down from Red Bull to Mercedes to apologise to Wolff for saying that. Saying, I got that wrong. I misspoke there. Sorry. And Wolff said to him that you've caused a social media storm with that. People are questioning whether we actually moved over. And the onboard shows it very clearly that Antonelli has a big moment at turn 10. Catches the car but goes off.
He did a hell of a job to save it.
Both McLaren drivers had similar, didn't they, at turn 14?
14, yeah.
They all went through it. So, yeah, I don't think it's quite as... I don't think it was a fair comment at all from anyone, actually, on that front. But, GP did apologise at least, but Toto called Helmut brainless for still continuing with that thread of
good
thought. So, at least they're all getting on. The Austrians are all friends.
Chris, we were commenting earlier how we saw lots of little mistakes from both McLaren drivers, and I don't remember seeing much of Max Verstappen at all during the television coverage.
No, I mean, one of the things I will say when we talk about mistakes, those McLaren drivers had to push at 100%. They had to give it everything to have any hope of getting into that fight, trying to close down Max. You heard Oscar talking about being aggressive with the strategy. They needed to go for it. Max had the opposite. He knew he had basically as long as stint as you were allowed to do in the race. And as we saw with what could potentially be, as we say, a failure for Hadjar, we'll have to find out what the cause of that was. Maybe it was a little bit on edge with the front left if you pushed hard for the whole 25 laps. So Verstappen would have been taking it slightly easier. He would have been driving slightly within himself because he was just matching the pace that he needed to get to the end of the race. And he was in total control, wasn't he? We saw some what looked like very fast laps from Piastri that made you go, oh, maybe, the McLaren's rapid. But Verstappen pretty much always had an answer, at least close to, at that stage. So sorry as I get... don't know if any of the noise around me is being picked up.
That's all right.
No,
at least they didn't make the mistake of going, okay, let's go after Max, like they did in Vegas.
No, but GP still gave him a similar kind of hurry up, didn't he?
Yeah,
he
did.
Right, now it's Piastri's pitted and coming to chase you down.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware, but he had him so easily covered.
Totally.
It was a serene one, I think, for Verstappen. And as he said on Thursday, it's others' failings that have kept them in the fight, but boy, do Red Bull take advantage when they do.
Yep. What else? We're trying to think of things we covered before you jumped on, Chris, and get your opinion on those. Obviously, the Carlos Sainz podium is so amazing. And
can I ratify something?
Sure.
I made the claim that I think that that Hadjar is 1 foot in the dark blue car. Can you what's your guess? But that announcement is coming, right?
2 feet above 2 hands, the helmet.
Gotcha. He's strapped in.
He's strapped in.
And therefore, what happens to our good friend Yuki then?
I from what I've gathered, no, a decision must have been made. But when I've spoken to anyone on actually the Sonoda side of the camp, they say they don't know where he ends up. But that, yes, he's not going to be in Red Bull anymore. So could he be back at Racing Bulls? Maybe, but it sounds like either he hasn't been told he is, which would suggest he isn't, or he's going to be without a drive. But very much with Hadjar, it's done. Hadjar was bouncing off the walls on Thursday, saying he can't say anything, but he knows that he's racing next year on the grid, and he can't say where, and it's very obvious.
Yeah.
I actually tried to get an answer out of Alan Permain at one point yesterday as well, which he laughed off and just said, nice try. But yeah, he was very, very coy about saying, well, we've got him for 2 more races at least, and that's potentially it. So it was, they know that Hadjar's off elsewhere. And so I brought myself down to Red Bull, and I'm going to try and see if we can get anyone to talk, actually, maybe not about that, but about Max Verstappen and his situation, because Helmut Marko just wandered down. But he's in conversation. We haven't heard from him for a while, have we?
You could ask him about the brainless comment.
Yeah, make sure he doesn't go to the toilet like Vegas. I mean,
That's right. That's what happened.
And then pick the
what
phone
I
up
always
on me.
wanted to do in those situations where somebody said, no, I can't tell you. I would turn around and say, well, nobody cares anyway, and walk away and see how they react.
Nice strategy.
Yeah. Oh, was somebody talked to me about Adrian Newey? I missed wheel to wheel.
Yes, we were
really
discussing in the
fascinated
break,
by
Chris.
that.
So we kind of covered this yesterday, but our YouTube fans have weighed in, and we could perhaps reiterate what we said yesterday.
Qualifying. That's when it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was qualifying yesterday. Yeah. This was on Newey going to.
Yeah, well, basically the longevity of his principledness. In other words,
interim?
Is this an interim role?
Yeah.
I said yes. Bill Rickers says yes, and also follows that up by saying that he basically needs a good vice principal to do all the Horner works,
That's
to
kinda
do
what I
all the
was
things.
saying.
And it sounds like Lawrence Stroll is a good helmsman, running the ship, and therefore they don't need anybody else. They just need somebody who's willing to be the face of Aston Martin and go to the press and yarn with people like our friend Chris Medland.
Well, yes, I do think I spoke to someone from Aston Martin actually earlier today about Adrian, and they were saying they're trying to work out how much he'll do in terms of media, but that they're telling him he needs to do more, is going to need to do more eventually. That he's going to have to learn that role. So whether he's just straight into it now or it's something he grows into, I'm 50-50, to be honest. I could be either way in that sense. I kind of sit on the fence whether it's something that he did want or not, as I find myself trying to see if we can get a word. I think it could go either way, because I thought it was going to be clear that it was actually going to be a. No, I'm not going to get a word help with Marco. Sorry, guys. Every time I try, somebody like Max's manager Raymond Vermeulen goes in and has a chat with him. So I put myself in range at least. So yes, sorry. Back to Newey. I thought it was okay. That opens the door for Horner, but then Lawrence Stroll has told the factory when announcing it on Tuesday that Horner's not going in there, and this is the structure they'll move forwards with. But then I'm told from sources closer to Horner that there have been talks, and that's not what Stroll's been saying to Horner. Not that it's a done deal, but that it's not a definitely not going to happen. So I genuinely think there's uncertainty even at Aston Martin. They don't know where it's going to go.
Right,
and
okay.
To be fair, look at the changes that team has had over the last 18 months.
4
2
principals,
years in terms of personnel and management.
Yeah.
Could you confidently say anything in terms of how it's going to be structured in the future? I don't think you can.
No, you can't.
All right, well, let's get a quick break in. When we come back, we'll have more discussion about today's race and next week's race. Back after these messages. All right, let's see. What's going on, YouTubers? Jonathan got a couple things from Bill a minute ago.
Yeah, they're chatty.
They're chatting away. Into music. 2 really bad pit stop calls from McLaren, in his opinion. In the early one, it's the last one as well. Oscar pit early, fresh rubber, trying to catch
Kevin
Max.
Kelly says it'll be a temp job for Newey.
Well, yeah.
I agree with that. And well, if you haven't finished the Newey discussion, I'd like to put a bow on it,
Sure.
as David Loignan would say. Okay, Bob, we're coming back to you to put a bow on it.
What did you say, Chris?
So the cherry on top.
There you go.
Andy P says, didn't Kravitz report Hadjar to Red Bull already yesterday? Sonoda appears to be out. I think Kravitz probably said exactly what Chris did, but he essentially reported it, but it's not official.
Yeah. Ah. It's hardly a surprise, is
Wanted
it?
to get out there first.
Yeah.
We all do.
Of course we do.
But that's
Tremaine
why
laughed it off. He knew that he couldn't say yes, but also knew that everybody knew when I asked him yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Tim says, how about Charles rattling on him on George for going off track? I found it hilarious.
I didn't know what he meant there.
When
As the entry to turn 10, we had a few drivers do it where they were opening up the corner as much as they could.
Oh,
actually
yes, and crossing the line. Yes.
And he felt that George was going over. And George did get pinged a few times there. He actually got pinged straight afterwards, as if the stewards did pay attention.
All right, we got a few seconds. We're back. Hey, Chris, I want to ask you, do you know if Hadjar's, was it a puncture or a blowout?
I don't know, but what would you call the difference? Surely it's a.
Well, I
gap in
didn't know
the
if
tyre and
something was on track. In other words, was it tire wear that Pirelli was worried about?
No.
I see. I will see if someone will tell me. I am
All right,
down
here we
there
go.
now, so I will stick ahead in.
Hi guys, this is Pierre Gasly and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. Jon Massengale, Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland still live in Qatar. And he was going to go stick his head in and ask about tires. Chris, where are you at, buddy?
I'm now outside Williams again because there was nobody in Racing Bulls that wanted to, well, who could answer the question. I do believe most people are in debrief right now, but I spotted the comms team from Williams hanging around, and I think they're about to go and do a celebratory photo. And that says to me, oh, well, maybe a team member or two will show up. So let's stay down this in the paddock. Partly as well because McLaren, to be fair, they fronted up straight away. I saw Zach and Andrea do quite a few interviews, but now they've disappeared. And Red Bull are very much in debrief as well. So, I mean, the weird thing about this sport, obviously, how exciting what we've got for a title fight, but everyone is packing up to get to Abu Dhabi.
I know.
We're in the middle of a triple header where a lot of people are exhausted. They've got a lot of energy in it, but they don't have a lot of time to prepare and react to what's happened here and get ready for the next one. So it very much is a very quick game face on and turn your attentions to that final round because for most teams, there's a lot hanging on it. Williams actually is one where there's not because they've sewn up P5, I think. I'm just looking at Rebecca Banks, who is head of comms here, and you have sewn up P5, right?
We have.
Brilliant. Thanks. See you later. You were gesturing at me. Where would you like me to go?
We're going to do a team
Aren't
photo
you
at the
going
front
to
if
buy
you'd
me
like
a
to
drink?
head that.
I'll do that. I'm going to the front of their garage for their celebration and see if I can grab anyone. In fact, I can see James Vowles. Can I cut him off at the pass? Nobody can see me, but I can tell you that I've tried to run through some tyres to get to a team principal before anyone else gets to a team principal. Which this could
What
go
a
terribly,
game.
guys. Because I've described what's going on to you guys. Oh, and there's a Carlos Sainz as well who's appeared and getting a big hug. You've seen it's all through my eyes. He's on a scooter. Got to get off the scooter to celebrate with his dad.
Getting a big what?
I'll hug him.
Carlos's team. He's a very happy Carlos who scoots by. And I might just try and actually do a walk and talk with James because now we're on the radio. I spoke to you earlier. How the celebration's going so far?
Yeah, just brilliant. Just incredibly proud of everything we've achieved over the last year. I mean, to think 12 months ago, we were effectively in a position where we're ninth in the championship, and today securing fifth, but not just that, 3 podiums in a year. It's a different world, and really proud of how the team performed today. That was earned, but properly earned.
Well, it's very loud in here. I'm going to let you celebrate, but the crew did want me to ask one question. Were you surprised that one team did not make a pit stop at the start of that race?
Yeah, it's. I said it live on Sky as well at the same time. That one was a bit of a clear one, certainly in our books, but difficult day for them. But at least the championship goes on to the next race.
It does indeed. I better get out of the way. I'm in your team photo. See you guys.
Nice work.
Wow. So James Vowles agrees with the internet, with us, with everybody.
Well, and he is an official team strategist of past. So, I'll take it from him.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to the...
I was genuinely in the back of their shot there. Fortunately, Carlos hadn't got there yet.
Nice. I was saying kudos to the internet because it was hanging on by the skin of its teeth when you were interviewing James, but we got everything. I was very happy to hear that.
Talk about perspective. You listen to what James had to say, and you think that just a couple of years ago, one team and almost one driver won virtually all the races in the season. And for them to get 3 podiums in a season is a cause for celebration. I mean, that tells you what life is like in Formula One.
Yeah, this is such a competitive era.
Yeah, and
it's been great. We've got such a strength and depth, don't we, in this grid as well? You look at the quality everywhere. It's remarkable.
Yeah. I'm just. In fact, I have all the teams just sitting up in front of me. I'm just coincidentally, I'm going. Every single team has got something to be excited about right now. Every single team. You know, Alpine and Haas. You think of the teams at the back of the grid. There's been good things happening everywhere. So. Yeah, completely. All right, we got about 4 minutes left in the show. Chris, when we first jumped on, we were just excited that the fact that this is now down to 16 points across 3 drivers, and the fact that we're going into this final race, so exciting with, it's all to play for with these 3 drivers. And you were talking about the buzz in the paddock. I think that's what makes a triple header back to back to back easy when you've got this going on. It's got to be, I think everybody's got to be excited about this.
Kind of, yes. Absolutely, in many ways. There's a lot of people actually had plans not to be in Abu Dhabi, from media and broadcasters, thinking it would be a quiet one and the championship would have been wrapped up, and now they've got to go. But when it is like this, the buzz is huge. And I'm still in the middle of the Williams celebrations right now, which is pretty infectious when you see a team that's had a big result like that. There is people chasing each other with champagne bottles everywhere just to try and douse each other. But it's not always the case. I mean, we say this. Now, Racing Bulls, for example, I know Liam Lawson did score, so good job for him. But Qatar was on for a top 6, and that would have been big for their fight in the Constructors' Championship for 6th place. And maybe that's left that door open slightly to a Haas or to a Sauber or an Aston Martin at the final round. And they'll be deflated by this and kind of slightly exhausted and nervous going to the final race. So, it depends which side of the fence you're on, I think, for how this weekend went, based on what that will do for you for
next weekend,
the trip to Abu Dhabi.
Jonathan, I forgot you wanted to put a bow on the Adrian Newey thing.
Just that they've left themselves in a precarious position, has Lawrence, because I briefly discussed this with Chris. When you pay Adrian Newey as much as you do, he's the highest paid guy there. So if he says, I want to go this way, who's going to argue with him? And any CEO you bring in, A, you probably can't pay them more, and B, you can't give them more power than Adrian Newey because he is the man. So...
Bob Varsha, we've just got about 2 minutes or so left in the show. I just wanted to get one more thought from you about next week. We're coming down to the final race of the season, and we don't have a champion crowned yet. This is not what we all envisioned, is it?
Not at all, but in a very good way. And with that in mind, let's all have a moment of silence for 2021 and the way that championship turned out in Abu Dhabi.
Oh.
Yes, good point.
So you could tell how my colleagues remember it.
Yeah.
Can we make sure we have only controversy that's from the teams this time, please, or from the drivers themselves, and not from the makers? That'd be great.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I was telling Jonathan earlier, right before that, the night before that race, I made a cool little video with ominous music going. I can't wait to. It's all down to the wire here, and little did I know what we were about to see the next day. But I'm pretty excited about next week. Any final thoughts, Greeny?
No, I'm excited.
Well, who wins the title?
Who wins the title?
Lando.
Yeah. Guess have a name.
Lando.
Bob Varsha, you want to?
Max.
Ooh.
Okay, well then I guess I'm going to go.
I'm going to go Lando too.
Okay, I'll go Piastri. That's the only one that's left. I'll take it.
Full house.
Hey, Chris, right before you jumped on, I promised everyone that we would have the second half of the interview with Charles Leclerc that you did. Really nice little 9 or 10 minute interview you did with him. But now I can tell them they're going to have to wait for Wheel to Wheel to hear that. So they can hear that on Wednesday. And you can go to our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, to find out how to hear Wheel to Wheel. But we are done for today. We want to thanks to Casey Johns behind the glass. He had all the buttons pushing all the
Casey behind the looking glass.
All the interviews cut. So thank you, sir. Jonathan Green, thank you. Bob Varsha, Chris Medland, thanks a lot. Chris, we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next week.
Hey.